I'm Kathy Ramsperger at shoresofarsouls.com. I am so pleased and excited to have award-winning novelist Johnnie Bernhard with me here today for my Story Hour's first guest. Johnnie, it's so great to see you. It's great we as authors can stick together here on the internet when all the libraries and the bookstores are closed. And thank you for being my very first guest. I feel like we've had a lot of firsts together, and I am
Yeah, Kathy, I'm very proud of our journey together as authors. And, before Shores of Our Souls was published, I was the one that chased it until that came to be. So it's an honor to be your first guest, and quite wonderful to see you during the pandemic.
I know.
In person, it's a joy.
Thank God for technology for many reasons.
Yes.
So by way of a proper introduction, Johnnie's a former journalist and English teacher, and her passions are reading and writing. She's a prolific writer and traditionally published A Good Girl, How We Came to Be, and now Sisters of the Undertow. I've loved all your novels, Johnnie, but this one has my heart, I think. It's a very special book. Johnnie has Ann Tyler's knack for creating quirky, endearing characters with modest ambitions and big beating hearts. And that is an amazing review from, will you fill that in for me?
Well, it is the first time with the novel, and thank you for recognizing Sisters. I do believe that it's my most mature work. I think I had the most courage when I was writing it, and I kind of stepped over some skeletons and marched forward with my characters, if that makes sense. So with that review, it is the first time that I was compared to an author, National Book Award winner, whom I've been reading since the 90s. I was extremely humbled with the comparison to Ann Tyler. So I am excited about Sisters of the Undertow. I have to do a shout out to the editor at the publishing house, Dr. Bruce Fuller. He has a PhD, teaches in an MFA program at a university. He's also a published award-winning author. So to work with an editor that has that skill base and that love of literature, especially the genre of literary fiction, it was a dream come true for me. You know, as authors, we write because, and I think I can honestly say this about you, Kathy, I write for the sole purpose of making the emotional connection to the reader. It's not about the money. It's not about the 3 seconds of fame. It's about the emotional impact with the reader. And I take that very seriously. So when someone says, a reader, I had an emotional connection to this book, that's everything. That gets me back in the seat for those long hours in front of a monitor creating the next story. That's what feeds me, the emotional connection.
Doesn't it? That's just a beautiful way of putting it. So a little bit more, I'd like to read a few words of my review. And I'm going to read it from here because I don't have it memorized yet, but I almost do. Sisters of the Undertow delves ever deeper into what family means as sisters Kim and Kathy navigate the turbulent waters of this universally complex relationship dynamic. So to tell you a little bit more about the story, Kim, who thinks of herself as gifted, carries that label as a badge of honor, but it leads to her cynical, sensitive, sometimes superficial attitude haven't we all been there? You know, I mean, it's the way we are when we're younger. Um, I loved them, but I didn't want to be around them. Kathy says about her family. I know that's Kim, and Kathy, born prematurely, has struggled. See, I'm confusing them myself because they have so many differences and so many similarities, and you do that so well.
Thank you.
Character-driven fiction, my love. Kathy, born prematurely, has struggled both inside her family and to make a place for herself in society, which is not fully equipped to appreciate her beauty and brilliance. Yet she carries faith in herself, others, and something bigger than us. That's quotes, you say that, deep inside. So this is the beautiful cover, and you know I love it because it's water of sisters. And I'll read the opening paragraph, which explains the relationship of the two sisters so succinctly. And as you said, Johnnie, shows the yin yang between them. She was different. I knew this when I was just a kid. Not in the sense I know now, but rather as an uneasy feeling in my stomach, an anxiety I wasn't old enough to recognize. I was fair, she was a brunette. I was lucky, Kimberly Ann, the pretty and smart sister whose name was always called for the correct answer. She was unlucky, Kathy Renee, the plain and troubled sister whose name was never called at all. We were sisters. I loved and hated her.
Well, we can certainly say that about sisters, brothers, lifelong friendships, marriages, because that is the way human emotions work, especially in lifelong relationships.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. I'm getting questions. That's really good. But I have a few of my own, and all three of your novels, and I've read all three, drill down into what family means, what it means to be family. And do you enjoy writing about family the most?
Well, as upmarket and literary fiction, that's what I write. And if we are to define those, we have to have a universal theme. Everyone has a family. It may not be the traditional family of mom and dad, which are sisters in the Undertow, and also with a good girl. However, the second novel, How We Came to Be, out of loneliness, these people make an unusual family based on love and support. They're not blood relations, but yet they learn to care for each other as a family unit. Yes, I do like writing about family because I think it is our most, like the love and hate sentence, it's complex, it's yin and yang. And when we think about yin and yang, there's that center of that circle that joins those two very separate pieces together. And I love paradox. I love juxtaposition. I'm intrigued by it. And I think we find that in family. And I think from the time we're born until we die, we continue to try to understand those relationships.
There are life lessons, aren't they?
Yes, it's our life goal to understand who we are in that family and how we've changed and how those family members view us. It's interesting, I think. And I think, I'd like to think that it allows the reader to become involved and think about his or her own family relationships.
I like that comment. Yeah. It definitely brought me in. My favorite scene was when Kathy was learning to drive. And I liked it because my name is Kathy and because it just brought back so many memories. So you've succeeded that way, John.
Thank you. Thank you.
We all identify with one or the other or both of them. So next question, and then we'll take some from the viewers.
Okay.
So I noticed we're both friends. I only wish I were friends with Barbara Kingsolver, fans of Barbara Kingsolver. And I appreciate the underlying secondary themes of the social issues because of my own themes in my writing. Can you speak to that, please?
Well, as a former journalist and a teacher, and that's a call. You don't decide one day at 30, I'm going to do that. To really be passionate about these careers, which are not about money at all, and require long hours, there has to be this passion. You have to love people, and you have to be interested in people's stories. That's what drew me into journalism. And I started out as a journalist in Houston, Texas, which not many people know this about Texas or Houston, is that there's 90 different languages spoken there. It's a very international city. It's probably, along with possibly New York City, one of the most diversified culturally cities in the country. I'm very proud of that. And I was raised in that area, and it taught me a lot about the human story, not the Texas story, not the Deep South story, the human story, what connects us all as human beings. And I loved hearing the stories when I was a young journalist working in Houston. I'd go into the barrio, I'd go into Chinatown. I loved having that privilege of hearing those stories, and that stayed with me. And the connectability all humans share. We all want to be loved. We're all searching for love and acceptance. And you'll see that theme secondary through all three of my novels. All three contain immigrant elements. And that's what I'm trying to say to the reader. We all want to be loved. We all want to be recognized, no matter if we live in Nepal or Biloxi, Mississippi. That's what it's meant to be human, to love and to be loved.
The human family, so to speak.
That's right. So
they might seem like they're paradoxical to each other, but I don't find them so at all, because I think we're all connected. And you said that at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Your story talks about the lucky ones a lot. And I just wondered if you had your own comments about being lucky. Like, what is lucky?
What is lucky? Well, we could look at that in many different ways.
Please go ahead.
Kim obviously saw herself as the lucky one. She was born healthy, she was beautiful, and she was intelligent. She was an achiever because of those gifts. And her sister was unlucky. She was born at 29 weeks in the 70s, where medical science could not do for infants at that time what they could do now. Luckily, and notice that word, think about how many times we use it in our conversations. Luckily, the mother, we're not conscious of it, and we should be. Mm-hmm. Luckily, the mother, Sandy, is dedicated to her youngest daughter, born premature, and does everything within her power to build her intellectual skills, making sure emotionally she could be with others, participate with her peers, and is a very dedicated and loving mother. Luckily for that younger daughter, because that doesn't always exist for children with disabilities. Right. This is a complicated matter, and many people will think, does Johnnie have a disabled sister? No, I don't.
Right.
I'm one of 6. We were all born very healthy. But I will tell you what inspired this story. I attend church, well, before the virus, and there is a woman I've watched from afar for many years now. And she comes to church with her disabled daughter, who is a young adult. And I watch how loving the mother is towards the daughter and their interaction. And I learned over time that this particular mother, when she had her daughter, her husband wasn't able to cope with these mental and physical disabilities, and he divorced her.
Chills, because I've got some people like that in my life. And
so how can I not be inspired to write this story?
right.
And every time I saw the mother and daughter together, this has been going on for 5 years, this story in my head, and trying to develop these characters. I was amazed by the love. I was amazed by the courage of the mother. And another side note to the fact of this story, the actual mother, she's very different than Sandy. You know, when you write fiction, you may see something in real life, but you run with the ball. And you can make that character whomever you want that character to be. But the reality of that mother is she was never bitter. And when her husband remarried soon after, and the husband died, she was very supportive of his second wife. And the second wife is very supportive of the disabled daughter. I was amazed by the maturity and the love. So this is the passion that drove Sisters of the Undertow. And it made me constantly look at the connotations of lucky and unlucky. And I also thought, and this is a passage in the book, where someone's saying, aren't you lucky? And Kim, the cynical older daughter, replies, luck is for losers. You have to make your own luck. It's quite a bit to think about in our conversations as adults and how we perceive those who are lucky and those who are unlucky in our society.
Right. It's very true. It's very true. I love that part. And it makes you think and think again and think again. I dig deeper every time I think about luck from your book. So I've got some questions here. Marilyn Rice says, hello from across the pond. She's a friend in England and an author of 6 or 7 novels. Kathy Haidu, is that her middle name? Campbell?
Yes.
I love your family stories. Shanessa Gloom, hi Shanessa. Johnnie, do you start your books with an outline or are you a pantser?
That's a great question. I usually start with the character. Mm-hmm. And I do character sketches, and I have to fully develop that character. And then, as in all novels, we have to create the minor characters that support the story of the protagonist. You know, there's going to be an antagonist, the polar opposite of the protagonist that is fighting what the protagonist is trying to do. I apologize. I am still an English teacher at heart. And so I begin with characters because I write character-driven stories. And then their story starts to come to me, okay? Right. And I realize I'm writing a novel, so I have to develop the action in that plot triangle till I get to the climax and what is going to resolve this novel, all the issues the protagonist and other characters have. And I get to that climax and then I resolve them. So sometimes I'll do like a plot triangle, somewhat of an outline based on the plot, where I want to go, what character does that. But to be completely honest, especially if there are writers out there, that can change a million times for me. It is not unusual for me to write 12 or 13 drafts.
Right. Well,
because I try to allow those characters to speak and tell their stories. And that's really a weird thing to say out loud, but I know the readers and the writers will understand.
I'm fairly certain that they will. I know Marilyn, for one, because she had a question last time of me about do characters sometimes take the story and run off, you know? So I thank you for that answer. I know a lot of people will really resonate with it. And please, thank you for being an English teacher because I have a special place in my heart for my own English teachers and any English teacher. Because I think it's their love of story by and large that makes them who they are. So from Kathleen Rogers, Johnnie, you got West Texas down when Kimberly went to Texas Tech in Lubbock. You wrote about some difficult situations, especially when it came to how Kimberly handled a male predator. Can you talk a little about that?
I'm happy, and thank you for tuning in. Kathleen is a wonderful novelist as well. We've been following each other for years, so
another prolific novelist.
Yes, I'm grateful for her support and her interest. So, and we've talked about this before as writers. Write what you know, and Hemingway. And I write what I know. I will not write about a scene or a place until I've been there. And I've been to West Texas many, many times. I've been to Martha. I think writers can do research, and you can have a telephone conversation or a social media messenger conversation. But I think until you go there and feel that culture and that landscape, those characters will truly come alive. Why did I write about the predator? Now, this is a bit of fact that illustrated the fiction within Sisters of the Undertow. When I was an undergraduate in college, I lived, this was the early 80s, I lived in a co-ed dorm. And I remember coming home from a date. I had a boyfriend at the time, and he was walking me to my room, and there weren't any elevators. 4-story, ancient dorm, public university. And I remember we were walking down a long corridor, and there was a very pretty young woman crying outside the door. And the man in the room had obviously just beaten her and kicked her out. And my date and I helped her. I have never forgotten her humility. And of course, when #MeToo came along, that memory came back. And this is my way of an author as giving those women a voice that has happened to, and how it has affected them for the rest of their lives. Kim, in our novel, is afraid to love because she has been so disappointed by love, and it follows her until her middle age. She heals somewhat, but I think for women that this has happened to, I don't think there's 100% healing in something like that, especially when you're very young and innocent in what am I expecting from a male-female relationship? I'm new at this. What are my expectations, and what's the delivery? So this is the story of Kim. And Kathleen, that is where that story comes from.
Thank you, Johnnie. That I know there are a lot of people cheering for you right now, including me, having had that. I'm a Me Tooer, so it's special. Thank you. And every voice that speaks up about it allows another voice to be heard. So thank you for that too. So back to my questions. I'm wondering about your favorite book or books. I know some people here would really love to hear that because you're so well read.
Well, I absolutely adore Barbara Kingsolver. I love Gabriel Marquez. And I remember when I read everything he had written and he passed away, I was so sad because I thought, that is gone. What a terrible loss. If some of you haven't read him, he won the Nobel Prize, I think it was 1980, 1981, for 100 Years of Solitude. I actually refer to that book in Sisters of the Undertow because our protagonist, Kim, is a librarian and she loves books. That books are where Kim finds her security and her comfort. Barbara Kingsolver, a newer author, I absolutely love Jesmyn Ward. She won the National Book Award twice, the only author in America to do that. Miss Ward lives probably 40 minutes from me. She's a Mississippi writer. I will tell you, her themes are courageous and absolutely spot on about race relations in Mississippi. She is courageous. And she's a great writer, and this is what makes her great. Many people can write about race relations, but this is what makes her great. It's more than just disappointment and hate, because she also has characters that it's a young Black woman in love with a young white man. And that is the reality today, okay? Yeah. And how difficult that is in the Deep South. And I can't speak for other places. That is the place she's writing of. That is the setting. I had the pleasure of meeting her at the Mississippi Book Festival several years ago. She was the keynote speaker. And this is why I also would love and admire her so. Completely humble, soft-spoken. I was amazed. And standing in line for an hour to have her sign the book, if you could have seen all the young Black and white men and women, because it gives them a voice. Mm-hmm. It was beautiful. I met her and I asked if I could take a picture. Her daughter was right by her. There was no reason for her to play rock star author. She didn't have to. She did not have to. She's a beautiful woman. I encourage everybody to read her. There's a reason why she won the National Book Award twice.
Yes, I agree. I agree. I've only read one of her books and I am not remembering the title, but she is an amazing author.
But I also like, many of the classics from the Deep South, the Southern fiction writers, the Faulkner, the Hemingway, Eudora Welty. Flannery O'Connor inspires me quite a bit. She's an Alabama author, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I also love many Texas authors. Pulitzer Prize winner Larry McMurtry for Lonesome Dove. I mean, there's a reason why he won the Pulitzer Prize. The character development and the plot, it's perfect. It's absolutely
So many
perfect.
books, so little time. That's what I
Yes, so many
say.
books, so little time.
It's yeah, I think you feel like you feel about O'Connor like I do Welty. Welty kind of got my
I do love a lot of the UK writers because I have a daughter that lives in Ireland. She and her husband are great readers. And every time I go there, they have a stack of books for me. And I will tell you what's absolutely lovely about the UK market, a little different from the US market. In the UK, they love literary fiction and poets. They absolutely adore them. And that's wonderful. It's great to see that. They love the big read.
So I'm going to read a little bit. I don't want to take too much of your time today, and I want to thank everybody who listened in, and I want to say that this is being recorded and it will be up here for later viewing. So tell your friends, because I'm absolutely certain after hearing Johnnie, you'll know they want to hear her. I find it really appropriate that the Sisters of the Undertow ends with a storm, Hurricane Harvey. And I'll read a little bit about, it's not the absolute ending chapter, but it is very close to the end. Come here, Kim. I got to show you something. Sean was sitting in front of a computer, surfing the net. It was a summer survival game. Who could find the coolest picture or video on the internet? The dog days of summer had begun in Houston, and any diversion from the 3-digit heat index, such as videos of penguins sliding on their bellies or polar bears diving off an iceberg, made the day a bit better. I moved a cart of paperbacks onto a table for the Friends of the Library book sale this Saturday, then walked toward the row of computers near the fiction section. Do you really think this will beat the swimming hippos video I showed you yesterday? I laughed as I approached him, although he didn't turn around to acknowledge me. Yeah, this will beat it. On the screen was a rattlesnake, at least 6 feet long, dancing in the high branches of a pinyon pine tree, those evergreens growing in West Texas, in Lubbock and Marfa. It looked as if the snake was glued to the pine branch by its rattler, while the rest of his body was undulating in the air. This is one of the strangest things I've ever seen. It's the devil, Kim. Look at him, Sean said, starting the video again. Well, you certainly won with that video, I said, with the hair on my arms standing on end. It's an omen when animals act strange. According to the Farmer's Almanac? No, according to nature. The animals are the first to know something bad is going to happen. Like in Macbeth, when the horses eat each other, King Duncan is murdered by Macbeth. An unnatural act causes chaos in the natural world. Maybe that snake dancing is a reaction to global warming. Now, Sean, that's a bit far-fetched. It's too hot for June. The Gulf is a dead zone because of fertilizer runoff from suburbs and golf courses. The accumulated plastic garbage in the Pacific is almost the size of Mexico. We humans are the only animals that defecate in our own nest. Why is it so hard to believe nature would take revenge? Double, double, toil and trouble, I laughed while returning to my work for the book sale. You won't be laughing when that trouble hits. Sean got up from the computer and grabbed his Walmart bag full of clothes, paperbacks, and packaged beef jerky. You aren't leaving, are you? It's too hot out there. Yeah, I'm going to the West Coast, maybe Seattle or Portland. I'm getting out of here before the storm. I just lost. Oh, Sean, come on. I didn't mean to laugh at you. I think we're going to have a hell of a hurricane season. If you were smart, you'd get out of here too. That was the last I saw of Sean Callahan, the back of his t-shirt that read Eddie Would Go, with a faded print of a surfer riding a perfect wave in bluer than blue water. Sisters of the Undertow. You'll love it if you have a sister. You'll love it if you don't have a sister, because I don't have a sister. And if you have a family, you'll love this book. If you love books about social issues, you'll love this book. And if you've heard Johnnie's voice today and you want to read it again, you'll love this book.
Thank you. I just want to do a shout out to many of the indie bookstores.
Absolutely.
If you're interested in buying the book is available nationwide at indie bookstores. Go to the website of the indie bookstore in your area, and you'll see it there. And send an email or call the store, and they'll ship it to you. Amazon is always easy. The book is currently on sale on Amazon, available Amazon, the UK, Germany, Target.com, BarnesandNoble.com. Thank you for supporting me as an author. It's a privilege to have people read my work.
So where can people find you, Johnnie? And I also want to say that you have won multiple awards for all your books. And this is a Pulpwood Queens featured book. Your most recent award is 100 to Read by University Presses. And that is an accomplishment. Where can people find you, Johnnie?
Well, for now, with the pandemic, on social media. You know, any of the social media sites. Facebook is fun. You could go to my website, JohnnieBernhardAuthor.com. There's reader questions for all the books. I have a little blog where I give writing tips. When the world has healed, I hope to be out and about again. I had 30 events planned in 5 different states. But I'm grateful, I'm healthy, and my family's healthy. There's a time for everything. And that time will come back when we're out enjoying bookstores and book festivals. And I look forward to enjoying that with readers.
And in the meantime, they'll see you at events like these. And I'm very thankful for the internet for what it is. I'm a touch and feel kind of girl, so I'm looking forward to things opening back up, and my heart goes out to all the bookstores. Bookshop.org, guys, is another place you can support bookstores. But in the meantime, JohnnieBernhardAuthor.com, and you'll find her book available just about anywhere online, especially in the indie bookstores. And I always either begin or end by sharing my tea bag wisdom. I pull this out and have my tea every day, and people wait for it, so I'm going to do it. And it is recognize that you are the truth.
Oh gosh.
Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
I haven't pulled a tea bag yet that didn't resonate with what we were talking about. So with that, Johnnie, thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining me here today. And I know our viewers are thanking you too. This has just been a joy and a pleasure. And see you soon, I hope. So long. Bye for now.
Bye-bye, friend. Thank you.
And Johnnie will come back if she hasn't gotten to your question live and answer later. Thank you all for listening. I'm Kathy Ramsperger at shoresofoursouls.com. Bye for now.